Hello and welcome to Medical and Metaphysical Magic with Karen Crichton, who you'll see in a minute. Yes. And Karen Janelle Davis. And we are so delighted that you've come to join us. We're on our fifth in this series. And last week we were talking about depression and we had some amazing feedback. And this week we're going to start with depression and move towards the topic of anxiety. But before we get started, our disclaimer that needs to be said: we're not offering medical advice. What we are offering is our own personal opinions and experiences from our time in the clinic, our time working with people, and because of the work that we do. Isn't that right, Karen?
Yes, and also, of course, our own human experiences.
Oh my gosh, yes, we've definitely got those and we're willing to talk about them. So there we go. All right, so moving into our beautiful hot topic. Thank you for the questions, everybody. We've had some amazing questions. We've also had incredible feedback from our last, specifically the depression one. That really touched some significant people. And it had a nice big reach, that one. So we're starting off with a bounce. Let's start off with the bounce, Karen. Summing up the topic of depression from last week, and then we can move into anxiety, or at least the topic of anxiety. Let's not move into it.
They merge into one another, though, don't they, really? Because from my experience, very often we get anxiety due to an imbalance. And we briefly touched on our hormonal system last week. Was the symptoms of depression can often be a thyroid imbalance. So depression is a symptom of your thyroid being underactive. And the thyroid is vital for our physical, emotional well-being. And if someone's feeling extreme fatigue along with the depression and that sort of thing, then that can actually show up to be a thyroid imbalance. Now, very often I have clients coming into the clinic, and you'll probably be the same, Karen, is they come into the clinic and they say to me, I've got depression, I'm feeling really bad, I have been to my doctor, I feel it's my thyroid, but I've had all the tests done, and my thyroid's perfect, it's working perfectly. And I always say to them is, have you had a blood test? And if you have, the biggest problem with the blood test is that what it's measuring is the amount of hormones buzzing around in your system, which can be ample, but it doesn't measure how our body is utilizing them. And so consequently, if our body isn't utilizing those hormones effectively, it means that there is an imbalance, because our body cannot, for example, we have various different hormones that come from the thyroid, but the two major ones are T3 and T4. And T4 gets converted via the liver, and we need certain nutrients to convert. And so zinc, magnesium, and a few others are critical. It's mainly minerals that are needed for us to convert T4 to T3. And so consequently, it's a really, really important thing is that our mineral levels are good with our thyroid. And so it's also important that we also have a look, is there an underlying adrenal fatigue that's actually causing the thyroid to go to kilter? And so that's what we're actually looking at with that. And so that's what really came up for me last week about depression is, are we looking at root causes?
Right. Which is the most ideal place to start from, right? The actual root cause, not just the symptoms, but it's the symptoms that we're feeling.
Yes.
So it's the symptoms that people are feeling and we're feeling. So when it comes to a root cause and we can solve that, the body is going to simply work better, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I love what you said about how is the body utilizing or using those hormones, and is it efficient or effective? It's the same with our energy. When our energy is in a stuck place around, for depression mainly, in most cases that I have witnessed up until now anyway, in most cases it is always with an orientation to the past. Always has an orientation to the past, to past experiences and the way we're making meaning of those.
Yeah.
So how our energy is circulating, like you said, how it's moving through the body, how it's circulating and how it's being used may be very inefficient because it's moving around a topic that we're either very sensitive to, a deep pressing issue that desires to be released, and or is being ignored. However, it's coming through in a very, I'm going to call it severe form, in order, because ultimately you, the whole being, physically, mentally, emotionally, desire to be in your natural flow. Now, normal may be the sense of depression, but natural is not that.
Oh, the two ends, normal and natural, because we get very stuck into our normal. It's I've been reading recently about change, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So if we don't change something and we want a different result, it's a sign of madness, isn't it, really? So if we're doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and we're expecting a different outcome, it's not likely it's going to happen. And so consequently, if we want a different result, as in wanting to release depression, if we carry on doing exactly the same thing as we've been doing, then we're not going to move through that. And I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? Really being stuck in a past pattern.
Yes, because a pattern's going to be cyclic, right? It indicates an habitual pattern. No, let's just make it simple. And you'll have a chosen way that you drive to a certain shop or to a certain place that you have to go regularly. You'll have a chosen way. You'll have another backup if the traffic's different. But pretty much we are very habitual creatures, and so within this habitual nature, and we need this habitual nature because it stops us having to learn every single time we open a door, or every single time we get in the car, or every single time we go to eat. We need habitual natures so that we can move ourselves around in the world. And sometimes the cycle of the energy that is trapped or stuck or moving in such a way that it feels like that is coming back to the root cause, is part of the root cause of what is going on. Yeah.
So it's actually having a rhythm and routine that really suits your body and really finding out what that rhythm and routine, just to come back to stuck energy and being in the past, is when, we talked about the thyroid, for example, and of course the thyroid being in the neck. Could that, the stuckness in the thyroid, of course, be about not speaking out about something, and so preventing us from actually coming into balance with that? Would you say that's your interpretation of that, Karen?
Yes. Yes is my only answer. Yes. And not even and.
Yes. Right. And so that actually swings me nicely round to another root cause that is dear to both of our hearts, and that is the digestive brain. And I mean, I don't call it digestive brain, I call it the digestive system that's out of sorts. And what I noticed, I don't know about you, Karen, but when we were preparing to get onto this call, I started to get the feelings of anxiety. And I was wondering if it was just we were picking up on what other people were feeling, or whether because we'd been talking about anxiety and because we knew it was coming up, whether that was bringing up those feelings from deep in the digestive tract, and so vibrating through so we could actually, I mean, with me, it's a memory because I have suffered with anxiety. And so consequently, I was wondering if you had any insight in that, because are we picking up on other people's anxiety, or is it our own or my own?
Yeah, I love that question because it was this morning that I was also paying attention to the fact that we had this call, and so it was not, in the last 20 minutes I haven't really had that suffering of anxiety as a true long-lasting experience before. I haven't had it as a label for myself personally, but I've certainly interacted with a lot of clients who have come into the clinic originally with that level of, and that word. And so my gentle, I guess, question, without even realizing it, was, what are people experiencing and feeling really at that level? And it is a group of sensations. And so what happened, I guess the 50 trillion cells, and this is how powerful we are, the 50 trillion cells within me went, oh, okay, that's the topic. Here you go. Experience these sensations as, because we cannot not observe something without having an interaction with it. If you want to come to the idea that we, the observer, are participant with whatever is present. And so that would be my feed into that, is purely by the observation of it and the fact that we're bringing it into our space of awareness, that we would then have an orientation and an observation, or perhaps the deep experience of what the label is, and therefore the sensations in the body are going to move in such a way to show the being what that experience is. Was that simple? Didn't sound simple, but it meant to be. I think the story that's going to cleanly do this, and it's in a completely left field idea. This week I'm focusing on the feminine energy because I'm working with the quantum essences, and this week it is feminine. This is what we're teaching our group of practitioners. And with my focus orientating onto the feminine, what I began to observe is that I could not recognize the masculine as well, because that's part of the whole.
Yeah. So if we sort of take anxiety, we can easily experience the calmness. It's the complete polar opposite. And it's actually, right, okay, let's talk about, because last week we went into the metaphysical side, the metaphysical reasons behind why we get all of that. And with the anxiety as well, it's like, let's have a look at some really practical ways, because I know you teach some really practical ways of how people can actually deal with these feelings and reverse it around to a feeling of calmness and gliding through life. Because I think for me, when I used to feel that real feeling of anxiousness, it was basically another form of holding pattern that held me in that pattern. And I know that what actually helped me was doing some meditation practices, and you know, just, I'm not very good at meditation, by the way, guys, anyone who's watching this, I'm not a meditation guru, and I've never been one of those people. I find that I do a short meditation, which is really cool, because Karen does some brilliant short meditations, and she really helps. It's visualization, so it actually gets my my brain that can go off in many directions. It actually helps me to really calm down and really. So those sorts of meditations I find really, really good. Whereas the music ones, I find they annoy me, and I basically go off on another tangent. So I find that guided visualization meditations really help me. But also, and you can talk about that, Karen, in a minute, but the thing which I find really effective is looking at what I'm eating and what I'm drinking and making a valued judgment as to what I'm actually putting in my mouth. Because when we're under stress, anxiety, depression, we tend to be eating to push that feeling down. And what that actually does is it actually makes it worse. So over the last few years, I've been sort of researching foods, and I mean, actual fact, nearly 30 years I've been researching food, but really over the last few years it's been enhanced, and I've realized that if we have a good base of polyphenols, which are phytonutrients, and they come in mysterious ways. I mean, you know the reason why we go towards chocolate, right, is because they contain a lot of polyphenols. Unfortunately, a lot of the chocolate that we get nowadays are not high in polyphenols, but the really dark, rich chocolate is high in polyphenols, which is why we go towards it. It's natural instinct. But also the leafy vegetables, the dark berries, like blueberries and things, that's the reason. And they can actually help, over long-term use, reduce the feelings of anxiety and depression, along with many other nutrients and things, which is everyone who knows me knows I create a range of magnesiums, and magnesium would be my top nutrient to use. And I mean use, not take, because if you put it on your skin, your body wouldn't absorb it. But also over recent months, I've been researching colostrum. And colostrum is the sort of like the first breast milk that gives our babies amazing immunity and everything else. But research is showing that by taking colostrum, it can actually help reduce that level of anxiety and that sort of thing. So there are a few little tips. I mean, it's amazing where polyphenols are really high. Things like black olives and capers and those sorts of things. They're quite interesting.
Wow.
They're yummy foods. So
They are yummy foods, especially chocolate, right? I think it'd be really useful if we look at the topic of anxiety and its orientation. So although depression orientates to the past, anxiety as a functioning source within the way we're making meaning of things, it has an orientation of the future. All right, so its orientation is when we're focused on the future and something that hasn't even happened yet. It is always, I'm not even going to say that, it's actually always when we are feeling separate from our now space, for whatever reason. Now, fascinatingly so, the tight contractions, I mean, I'm just going to do that for a minute. It seems to have a very big core base here on the heart and below the heart space, where people feel this sense of anxiety, and it can throb, it can shift, it can move, it can compress, and it's a sense of real sucking in. And the observation is often it's that, so when it shows up in men, it's slightly different than how it shows up in women. Now, this is a huge, broad gender statement, okay, so forgive me if it shows up for you differently. But just my observations, for men, it's this real sucking in, and I'm going to pretend that this might be a trigger for when they were much younger. Okay, so there is a past orientation and memory of not being able to cope with something. So there's this suck in that happens, and then the need to expand feels very difficult. Now, it will normally always absolutely be because of because of a future orientation. So what do I mean by that? Something that's coming up that you don't feel you have the resources for.
So fear-based, basically. It's fear.
Very fear-based. It's very fear-based, and it will tap into, and this is why it has this flicking, it's almost depression and anxiety is almost a bipolar. Now that's a huge word to use, but dichotomy of difference. But they pop each other off. They do this significant, from one way of being into the past, into the future, into the past, into the future. Anyone who's observing this right now will go, oh yeah, but it's all happening in the now.
Yeah.
It's all happening in the now. And so the very big imbalance from a metaphysical level is this sense and feeling of not being able to connect to the resources that you need to cope with whatever is igniting or triggering the anxiety. Now, I want to take the label off too. And let's just, how is anxiety spelled? Anxiety. I think it's like that. So I'm going to invite you to imagine that all the letters in that word come back and find their own place in the alphabet. And then let's look underneath that. It's a group of feelings that we're having, that we're making meaning of. So we've got a thought process, because by the way, to create the experience of having an episode, an experience of anxiety, there's many systems that have to be involved, including the physical systems, and Karen will talk about this, I'm sure. But we have our mind, our mental component of what we are focusing on and how we are making meaning of this, how we are storing the information, what chemicals are being released into the body. We also have concurrently occurring the actual emotional, the energy in motion, moving or not moving, and again, like depression, a cyclic, moving, habitual nature. And we also then have the interplay between the physical body experiencing this loop. So mind and body are very connected. And this is what happens when people feel that they're experiencing high anxiety. It's become literally a driving force for how they're making decisions. And the pain of it can be very extraordinary for people. And it puts them, like Karen said, into fear. So here are some tools, just some basic tools. Okay, what would be my first one for anxiety? Yeah, it's always going to be come back into this present space, because this doesn't sound right. Go to where the fire is, run to the fire. I'm feeling really uncomfortable in my body right now. The last places I want to feel is be in my body. Well, here's the interesting thing. A part of what's happening with the sensations is they're screaming for help. They're wanting your attention. They want you to be present within your space. In fact, they're demanding it, they're tantruming, they're causing a ruckus inside of you because they want you to be present. Because in your presence, within your now elongated space, you can connect to the resources you need. So that would be the first one. How do we do that?
Before you move on to that one, have you got any tools that you can say right here that people can actually do that with? Because I know I used to hear that from people saying to me, oh, just be in the now, just be present, just be here. But very often I thought, well, I am, but I've still got this stuff I've got to play, I've got to listen to. So have you got any little tips, really, Karen, that you can say? Yeah, a free one. Free
ones. Okay, free ones right here, right now. All right, so let's play a little game. Let's imagine that you're a vacuum, yeah? And your vacuum is going to be from the very center core of you, but you're going to use your attention. So you're literally going to suck your energy back in. So allowing you to come back into your space. Breath can do this, right? Breath, it's free. So breathing in. And here's something that I've only just learned the very fine-tuning details around, but you can do it. When you breathe, there's an expansion that occurs, but there's also a contraction. So you've probably taken in a deep breath and then felt the air coming in, but also felt the resistance in the chest area. Has anybody ever experienced that? If you just right now just take a big, seriously big deep breath in, you'll feel there's an expansion and a contraction that happens at the same time. just recently, I've noticed that when I do that and then blend into it, there's a real sense of being here that happens. And a little bit of stillness is found inside of there. Now you can begin to focus on the stillness, as Karen said earlier, the calmness, which is actually present already, because anxiety and calmness will be in the same space. So how do we do this? Oh, words. Okay, useful, please. Some of it is we don't do it. We just allow it to be different. Because we need the sense of control, you see. We seem to think we need this sense of control. So if I can do something, it's going to make a difference. But right present inside of you is the capacity to find the still and the calm. You know how inside of a storm there's a center point? Yeah? Well, I don't know if you know that or if you've heard that, but there's a stillness inside of the storm that's raging. So what I'm inviting you to do is go to the center stillness. Simple?
Great visual.
Pardon?
That's a great visual.
Yeah. So where are you headed? Right through that storm of anxiety, right through all the sensations without judging them, because you've taken the label off, right? But you've still got the sensations there. So what you're doing is you're moving through them to the center. And there you will find a stillness. You actually will. It's just a level of trust in yourself. And then you'll find that the two are in the same space, right? So you're in the stillness center, and the movement or the tightening or the surging of the energy and the sensations are around you. But your sense of control is given back immediately because you're now in the center of it. You're connected to your resources. If you blend, like in that expansion and contraction that occurs in the breath, if you blend, and the blending I'm meaning melting, I'm talking about letting go, that sense of relief when you go to the toilet, when you put down something heavy, when you finished a big project, and you're allowing yourself to let go. That can only bring you back into the centered space. So that's one. The other one that I find really useful as an instant physical immediate reaction is to invite someone to stand up, to look at the subject that they are currently feeling anxious about, because there'll always be a subject. It changes, but there'll always be a subject. Look at the subject, and then again, just like before, step into it. And you'll notice everything shifts, because now it's no longer in your future orientation, you've brought it inside of yourself. Some people have to step into it and through it. So I suggest you play with that. However, play with it when you're feeling good so that you have that resource available when you need it. So this is the practice. I do have some others, but how's that going so far, Karen?
That's fantastic, because especially I like the being in the eye of the storm. So it's being actually, there's still the stuff around, but you can actually just be in the middle of it, and you can let all that stuff go. Because I think that's, it's just stuff, isn't it? It's just stuff, flim flam of life.
It is stuff, but it has a cycle too. And so what's cycling around is the way we're making meaning of it. Oh my gosh, and 50 trillion cells listen. I'm feeling anxious right now. And 50 trillion cells go, yes, you are. Yeah, this is what it feels like. So just the idea of removing the label can really, really help. It saddens me when this is so true. It saddens me when I hear young people using these words called stressed and anxious and depression, because they're borrowed words, taught and learnt from externals.
Yes.
taught and learnt from
around a lot.
Yeah. And because it's a big label that's been taken out of us, and there's a lot of discussion around stress and anxiety and depression, and there's a lot of attention that's paid to it, it kind of in its own way feeds the problem itself.
Yeah.
Kind of in its way feeds the problem itself. Now, young people, can we talk about the young people that we have that are experiencing some of this? I mean, youth suicide's really high in New Zealand. I don't know about if you're out of New Zealand, anything else. But it does point back to the fact that somebody is feeling that they're not coping with how their world is showing up. They feel disconnected because of the pain, and because the idea of coming back into the pain doesn't make sense. Now, fascinatingly, so I'm going to go into an area that, okay, this is only my opinion, all right? This is one of those statements. This is only Karen's opinion. And I have had experience with clients like this. Some young people do what's called self-harming in a way to make the physical pain lessen the emotional pain. That in a very weird way isn't going to the center of the storm, but it's one way of cancelling out another. So they're kind of using one thing to cancel out another experience. Your thoughts, Karen?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we could take it even further. Is I know, with a lot of there's a lot of a problem in the media that they've been saying about drink and drugs and all of those addictive substances are being used the same way as you're talking about self-harm. They're basically pushing down the emotion, and all of those things are actually really trying to make sense of this world, because this world has changed inextricably, really. Because I mean, when I think of when I was young, the simplicity of our lives, and probably our parents would have been even more simple lives than we had. And so consequently, the youth of today, I think, have got a lot more complicated lives because there's so many things going on. However, what we've also got on top, in my opinion, and this is, as we said, it's my opinion, in my opinion, we've also got on top of that the fact that our food isn't as nutritious as it used to be. And the food choices aren't a lot of the time foods. They're not actually filling us with good nutrition. They're filling us with stuff and chemical compounds that our body really doesn't know what to do with. Our food stuff, I look around the supermarket and I would say 80%, if not more, of what is in the supermarket isn't food, as we would actually identify in our body. Because a lot of the sauces, a lot of the products, they're just a load of chemicals all put together to make them appeal to our taste buds. So our taste buds, we need a lot of variety. We need sweet, we need sour, we need texture, we need a lot of variety. And the marketing gurus are actually targeting that. They're not actually targeting what we're actually really eating. And so basically I believe our job, as in our generation, is about educating the mothers and the children to have real food. And that's been all of my drive, is for people to eat real food, to really understand and how to cook it. Because people go, oh, I haven't got the time. I'll buy this pack, and I cook it in the microwave, or I heat it in the microwave and it's all done. But really good nutritious food doesn't have to take a long time. I maximum take half an hour to create a meal for 4 of us. And, you sort of, well, half an hour is not very long. Yeah, okay, you have to go shopping. You have to go shopping for that. You still have to go and buy it. So what's the difference? I mean, this is, by the way, guys, in case you haven't noticed, this is my passion base, is about getting good nutrition into us, because it creates those cells that Karen's been talking about that can actually listen to and be able to comprehend all of the emotional, spiritual stuff. Because if we don't have a brain that's got its full quota of fats and it doesn't got its full quota of minerals, if it hasn't got it cannot fire on all cylinders and be doing what we want it to do. So, I mean, it's my belief. I mean, I've been a great one. I've believed in the spiritual aspects of my life, and I know how much emotion really makes a big difference. But if we don't get that physical body in the best shape it can possibly be, then we're not going to live the best possible life. Wouldn't you agree, Karen?
Oh, I was just going to say, if your house is degrading around you and nothing is done for the maintenance of it, the house becomes more and more dirtier and more cluttered and harder to live in. And so let's take this as a metaphor that if our physical body isn't being supported by minerals and nutritional uptake that is useful, then it's harder and harder to live in the physical body. I just want to link this back to what Karen said before about the young people. They do have more to deal with in life now, but they've also come fully equipped. And I have a real strong opinion around this one. Our young people are more magnificent than we're letting them be. They are truly sensitive, incredibly intelligent beings who have decided to come at this time, according to Karen, who have decided to come at this time for the very purpose of experiencing the shift and transformations that we're going through, and the fact that things are moving faster. And I personally believe that somebody beautiful on here, either John or Linda, have mentioned that the actual statement that's said in the chat box is the young parents, they have young parents that cannot deal with their emotional reality, no role models with greater external stresses. Okay, so bouncing off that, it's again my opinion, the young, we as beings learn at top speed. We're oh my gosh, we're incredible learners, and right through from birth to 15, we're learning at high speeds about everything that's around us, the way to eat, the way to be, how not to be present, how to do things. If our parents are busy trying to trying to fund a household and car and a way of being and looking and busyness in their workplace, and they haven't even got the time and resources to connect to self, it's very hard, even if you love your children, to be present with yourself, let alone present with them. And so much is being taught at these deep levels of how not to be present, which just delights me, because do you know what that means? Presence is always there. We just haven't been focusing on it.
Yes, tapping into that presence, isn't it? And my feeling is when you're in your presence, when you're in complete alignment, and that to me, of course, means physical, emotional, spiritual alignment, then we make optimum choices. So we make optimum choices about who we spend time with, because we haven't sort of like talked about that. Because if you spend time with people who are a bit depressed, a bit down, a bit, negative, then you're going to take on board that as a habit. Whereas if you spend time with positive people, then you're going to take on board that as a habit too. So we have the people we surround ourselves with, we have the environment we surround ourselves with, and if we're happy with that, what work we choose to do, food choices, all of those things. That is when we are making, if we're making optimal choices for ourselves, then we can have optimum health. Doesn't mean to say you don't feel down. It just doesn't mean to say you don't feel those real wonderful human emotions that we all need to feel to know that we're alive. Because you have to have the ups and the downs to experience and know what's what and what's what. But if we're in alignment, we identify those as what they really are, rather than what we perceive them to be. So, yeah.
Yeah. So here's some beautiful. It was just this morning. I received some amazing feedback from somebody who's done a 10-day detox and now wants to do the 40 days because she said that her attitude has changed. Now, this is a grandma. She's a beautiful lady. This is a grandma, and of a lot of grandchildren, and she's beautiful. But she observed and witnessed for herself over a 10-day of detoxing at the physical level, following actually Karen's plan. She detoxed her body. Okay. But by default, she was able to observe and witness a detoxing of, I guess, emotions as well. So do we go from zero to hero? Oh my gosh, it's just going to come out. From zero to hero in one moment? Oh yeah, we can. In fact, change and transformation happens like that. And sometimes it doesn't. So my encouragement is the words presence, the words now, the words center, the words love, the words wholeness can only point to our current experience of them. So in the offering that is coming forth in this moment, there's a pointing towards someone having their own journey of that. And so part of the journey, just like Karen said before, is the experience of really not having it. So this is what I feel like when I'm not present. This is what I feel like being anxious. This is what I feel like when I'm feeling stuck in a deeply pressing issue that I really would like cleared, depression. This is what I feel like when I'm not able to connect with myself. I feel isolated. I feel separate. I feel like I don't belong somewhere. Again, they're all words pointing to every single person's own personal interpretation and experience of it. We just have some agreed meanings. That's all we have, is some agreed meanings.
There was a lady who I worked with many years ago. We were talking about the same subject, really, a client I was dealing with, and she said to me, "Okay, Karen, ask this person what the difference for her is between anxiety and excitement." And that was really quite cool, because if you can look at anxiety, because it's so similar in feelings, aren't they? And so, okay, if I change the way I'm looking at this and go, oh, I'm feeling excited today. What is it that's making me feel excited? And that's what it is. And so, as we started the call, we started talking about what I did, and then you continue. It's about how I was feeling this old feeling of what I perceived as anxiety. And really and truly now, as we start talking, I realized that I was so excited about sharing, because this topic is so crucial at this present moment in time, probably more than ever. And I think whether we're young or old, it's the same thing we need to look at.
Yeah.
We need to look at, what are we really feeling? Are we really feeling that, or are we feeling excited? Are we you know, you notice I'm not mentioning the A word. we sort of like, can we feel really excited about our lives rather than this other stuff that we've been talked about, that we've been telling people about, that we as practitioners, I know I'm as guilty as anyone, is talking about depression and the A word, and you know, and instead of going, you know, let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about that and how you can increase that. So instead of focusing on the symptoms, we look at the root causes, and then we can dive into how we can keep on bringing that level of vitality and awareness and everything up there. So no matter what happens to us, we're feeling good with us, we're feeling good within ourselves. And that's what I think with you, Karen, with your work, with your meditation series, that I know that every time I've done them, it's just made me feel that much better and made me feel, you know, just, I mean, it's not a healing like that, because I think it depends on what level you're at. But every day we can improve and keep improving. And if we look back over a period of time, you look back and you go, is that really me? Because that's how I feel. You know, I look back and I go, was that really me? Did I feel like that? And I look back and go, oh, I've learned all this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm doing a relationship series at the moment, and that's just summing all this up, but relationship series at the moment, and I'm really outside of my knowing around it. I'm literally in trust of the process, and it's unraveling in an exquisite way, because it's pointing to who is the constant within relating. Okay, so let's unbungle relationship and go, what is relationship? Oh, it's how the process of relating with. So the process of how I relate with myself, and the process of how I relate with another being, and how I'm making meaning of this, how I'm making sense of it, what sensations in my... Quick add, the way I structure the understanding of things when I take off a label is very, very simple. I literally take off the label and then look at it as it's probably labeled an emotion of some kind, or a way of being of some kind. And then I take off the idea that it's a big conglomerate, and I go, okay, so it's an emotion, it's energy in motion. Let's wrangle down a little bit further. Oh, it's a group of feelings that have come together because they're resonating at a certain vibrational level. And then within that space, oh, even deeper inside of there, then sensations of movement. And sensations of movement hold a pattern. And they're moving around something, and they're participating in an engagement of relating with themselves and the others around them. Now, so I just spoke about the micro, now I'm talking about the macro component. This cell, how she's relating with herself and how she's relating with other people. And I do this purposely because when we look at the labels, or what anxiety and depression point towards, it's that.
Indeed.
Sensations moving in such a way. Now, when somebody's not feeling, I talk about resourced, but it correlates directly to what Karen was talking about with the physical body and the hormones not, I think you said hormones not being used efficiently. When I, Karen, feel separate from my resources, from my connectedness, as in, I don't think I can cope with something, I'm going to make a big summary generalization of that situation. Now, if I take that as truth, then I will live through that experience. If I'm willing to let go of it being a truth and the perception that it could be an illusion, I begin to observe myself in a different way. How am I using the resources that are there? So now I'm not saying that the body's an illusion or anything. There are certain requirements within the body at a physical level, at a physical nature, to use the energy and resources that are in place. Is this? Yep. Yep. So if the thyroid, because we're just circling around to come to completion in a moment, if the thyroid is working in a healthy way, then it will be in correlation and connection to the relating and relationships to the rest of the body, including the digestive system, including the hormonal system, including the autonomic nervous system, which is, there's two ends to the autonomic nervous system, as we all know. If we're in a very deeply parasympathetic space, we're either resting and digesting, or we could be in a depressing experience as a habitual way of being. If we're on the other end of the autonomic nervous system, we're in the sympathetic phase, which normally is in the area of, which is in its healthy version, it is when we're in full activity because we need to be. It could be fight or flight or full flow in action, right? That's in its healthy way. If it's under a fight or flight fear-based thing, then it more or less correlates to what we call stress. And so this I will link loosely to anxiety being very highly present in the body. And so this will correlate back to what Karen's been talking about, is the process of the body being in balance and using its nutritional aspects in a healthy and easy way. We can't separate our physical, emotional, spiritual, mental beings. They're a whole, they're one.
Also, it goes, in fact, is we cannot separate our nervous systems from our digestion, from our hormonal system, from our hands, from our head, we are whole beings. And if you treat the whole body, then you're going to get better results. And I'm talking whole body as in with the spiritual, emotional energy as well. And one little tip, guys, that I really have learnt, and that is grounding and helping the body to detoxify. And one of the easiest ways, I mean, there's lots of ways of grounding, like going and paddling in the sea, going and walking on grass barefoot, you know, all of those little things, going into nature, which are all absolutely wonderful. Not everyone can get there, but Epsom salt foot baths are absolutely amazing because they help ourselves. Epsom salts is magnesium sulfate, a wonderful detoxifier. In my experience, a magnesium sulfate, and the research I've read, is magnesium sulfate does not get absorbed in the body as magnesium, like magnesium chloride does. But what it does do, it enables our body to release toxicity through into the water. With Epsom salt foot bath, I normally recommend 250 grams of Epsom salts and a maximum of 12 minutes in the foot bath. Don't have it too hot. If you really want to have a longer foot bath, dissolve the Epsom salts in hot water and then add it the last 12 minutes that you're going to be in the foot bath. If you have your feet, or if you do a bath, you need 500 grams of magnesium, of Epsom salts, and you put 500 grams in the bath. But if you do it for any longer, what starts happening is reverse osmosis starts happening, and we start reabsorbing the toxicity. I've heard this so many times when clients have done the foot baths or the bath, and they say, "Oh, it made me feel worse, Kate." And I'm going, "How long did you stay in it?" "Oh, I did a long soak for an hour." And I'm going, "That's what." And I explain, and they go, "Ah." And it really can help make you feel so much better. So it's just a grounding experience, but also helping the body release toxicity. Because we need to have a body that's got, lots of nutrients in, but also it has to be detoxifying efficiently. And I know many medical professionals say about detox and how our bodies detoxify all the time, and they do 24/7. However, they need the detoxification pathways, the liver, the kidneys, the lymphatics, the skin, the lungs, all need support. And they need cleansing out every now and then, just like you do with your oil filter in your car or whatever. They all need a little bit of helping hand, because we get through a lot of toxins in our lives, emotional and physical.
Okay. Just one final thing, as an idea that came through for an easy tool for anxiety, and believe me, it would work. It does work. It's using the idea of the absurdity pattern. So this is, instead of going into that soft, easy, gentle, blah, 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 this is actually voicing what's going on, but without the words and without the meaning making. I'll tell you what, a damn good scream at the top of your lungs, a yell to the sea, but don't just stop there. Go on, take the vibration, because now we're talking at vibrational levels. Take the vibration to its completion. Let it out, let it express, let the energy release. So one good scream's a start. Because if you begin to make meaning of that in a rough way, it won't help. What I'm suggesting here is actually truly taking it to the next level. A decent scream that will, if you actually follow the full vibration of it, eventually, yeah, you'll get tired and that's okay. But if you follow it all the way through, if you follow it in truth, you will end up singing like a canary, even if you don't think you can sing. Sounding like a canary. I mean, voice vibrational work is really powerful because it bypasses the logical thinking brain. It touches into the vibrational aspects of healing and health, and it supports what Karen's talking about in so many ways, the physical body, because it's kind of recognizing the wholeness of the physical, and of course it's activating the throat. Some people call it the throat chakra, but let's talk about the thyroid. It will provide that aspect of being able to vibrate out what is being stuck in a system. Okay.
That's quite interesting.
Anything else?
If you did a detox bath and scream at the same time, you'd be doing perfectly, wouldn't you?
What was that?
Do a detox foot bath and scream at the same time, and you'll be just rocking.
And that will balance out the autonomic nervous system. I love it. Well, it will eventually balance it out if you follow it through. And this is about the guts and trusting yourself. All right, we need to come to a conclusion on this. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up for today, Karen?
Oh, just be really aware of what we're putting in our physical body and what we're putting in our mind. You know, what we're allowing into our space, and not listening to the naysayers, the news, the things that are being bandied around, because they're not necessarily so.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen. I just want to thank everyone who's on this call, and we've got a great group online. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope there's been something really, really useful for you here. And I also want to acknowledge the contributions that have been coming up in the chat box. Someone's just added, laughing also allows energy flow and chemical balancing. Of course, yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. And that's not fitting into the absurdity frame, but it's definitely an aspect that you can help others with. In the meantime, is be absurd. Be absurd with them if they're going through an anxious moment. If you have deep rapport, but you need deep rapport to do something like that.
Yeah.
All right, so bringing this to an end, thanking you for your participation. Love it when we send this through as an email, if people would share it, because the momentum's gaining. We've got another couple that we've committed to doing, and then we're going to reassess whether we're going to carry on discussing these topics moving forward. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Karen Janelle Davis saying goodbye, and
Karen Creighton saying goodbye for now.
For now.